Hello student, welcome to my channel. Today I will show you about the calculation of opening capital. So in order to calculate the interest on capital, calculation of opening capital is necessary. The thing is how you will know when to calculate the opening capital. If opening capital it is not given, now the question is how you identify it in the question whether it is given opening capital or not. So whenever you read the question, you will see it will mention balance of their capital as on 1st April if it will be written. 1st April, that is opening date, so opening capital. Suppose it will mention the balance of their capital after making all necessary adjustment on 31st March, that is closing capital. So closing capital if it is given, so you have to calculate first opening capital. So formula, before writing the formula, let me explain how to derive the formula. Generally, in last video I told you how to write, that means in the partner's capital account. So let me explain again. First, in the credit side, we generally write by opening capital by balance BD. Balance BD. This is opening capital. But this will not be given. You have to calculate it. And already I told you when the capital will be fixed, you have to maintain two accounts. One is partner's capital account, another is partner's current account. So in the capital account only you will write the opening capital, additional capital brought by the partner, and if the partner is withdrawn out of its capital, that you will write it, and the closing capital. These are the things you have to write in the partner's capital account when the capital will be fixed in nature. So I am writing it here by balance sheet. This is opening capital. Then by cash or bank account. This is additional capital. Additional capital. Additional capital. Then here you will write it to cash or bank. To cash or bank. This is a drawing out of capital. Out of capital. Then last one is to balance CD. This is closing capital. This will be given. That will be given. This also it will be given. You have to find out this one. So now you can derive the formula from this capital account. Closing capital plus drawing out of capital minus additional capital equal to opening capital. So no, that means if you will sometimes if you will be confused or in the examination if you will not remember it. So from this for that partner's capital account also you can derive the formula. So I am writing this formula. Opening capital when the capital is fixed. This is closing capital. Closing capital. Plus drawing out of capital. This is your drawing. Drawing out of capital. Minus additional capital. Additional capital. Equal to opening capital. This is the balancing figure. So that means in this also you can calculate the opening capital, and this is the direct formula. You will write it. You will remember it. Closing capital plus drawing out of capital minus additional capital. But when the capital, it will be fluctuating in nature. Last video I already told you in the question if it will be silent, it will not be mentioned the nature of the capital. Then you will consider it is the fluctuating capital. So when the capital will be fluctuating, last video I told you, you have to maintain only one account. That is partner's capital account. Here, that means what we did? We divided in two parts. Only capital amount or capital, that means out of capital additional capital, closing capital, you write on the that capital account. And other things, it will be shown on the partner's current account. But when the capital will be fluctuating, all the things you will write it here. Means by balance video, this is by balance video. Opening capital. Balance video. Opening capital. By case or bank, additional capital. Case or bank, additional capital. Additional capital. And last video I told you, whatever the things partner will get from the firm, like interest on capital, salary, profit, you have to write it on the credit side. So, by salary or remuneration, by interest on capital, by profit, divisible profit. Profit and loss appropriation account, what we generally get it. Then here you will write it. Here you will see both drawing out of profit, out of capital. Both you will write it here. So you can write it here to case or bank account. That is drawing out of capital. Out of capital. To drawing out of profit. Out of profit. You see here, we wrote it here, interest on capital. It will be credited to partner's capital. So if a partner has withdrawn, so interest on drawing also we write in here to interest on drawing. To interest on drawing. Like if it is profit, you have to write it here. If loss, you will write it here. Then you will write to balance CD. Balance CD. Clear? So now we can, that means derive the formula here. This will be given closing capital plus drawing out of capital, out of profit, plus interest on drawing, minus additional capital, minus salary or remuneration, minus interest on capital, minus profit, equal to opening capital. So that means this formula you can derive, because you need to remember the things when the capital it will be fluctuating, so it will be lengthy. So in this way you can remember it. It will be easy for you. Simply you have to remember what are the things we generally write on the credit side and what are the things we have to write on the debit side. So you can easily calculate the opening capital. So you can write the formula also. Opening capital equal to closing capital plus drawing plus interest on drawing minus interest on capital minus salary minus additional capital minus profit. Then you will get it. Clear? So I am explaining it. Opening capital equal to opening capital closing capital plus drawing. Drawing means both out of profit and out of capital, both, plus interest on drawing minus, this is additional capital, minus salary or remuneration minus interest on capital minus profit. So this is very lengthy formula. Sometimes you may forget, and sometimes you also, which is added here, maybe that means some students generally will do the mistake, they will deduct it. So it is better. This is the easiest way. Simply you have to write, you have to remember it. What are the things you have to write on the debit side, what are the things you have to write on the credit side. In this way you can calculate the opening capital. In the next video I will solve one questions and I will explain how to calculate the opening capital.